Welcome to World History Channel. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. When Queen Victoria died at the age of 81 on 22nd January 1901, it took her family, court, and subjects by surprise. Very few had been able to contemplate the mortality of the monarch who had ruled over Britain and its empire for almost 64 years. Her death marked the end of the Victorian era. Today, we'll explore Queen Victoria's final moments, the chaotic preparations for her state funeral on 2nd February 1901, and the secret items placed inside her coffin. The year 1900 had been Queen Victoria's annus horribilis. A horrible year, nothing but sadness and horrors of one kind and another, she wrote. In April, her eldest son, the Prince of Wales, had been shot at as he traveled through Belgium by a young boy protesting against the Boer War. Her eldest daughter, Vicky, the Dowager Empress of Germany, had been diagnosed with incurable breast cancer that had spread to her spine, and the Empress was languishing in great pain in her castle in Kronborg. In August 1900, a telegram had arrived announcing that her favorite son, the chain-smoking, heavy-drinking Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh, had died from throat cancer. "Oh God, my poor darling Affie gone too, my third grown-up child. It is hard at 81, she wrote. A few weeks later, she received the news that her much-loved grandson, Prince Christian Victor, eldest son of her daughter, Princess Helena, had succumbed to enteric fever while serving with the British Army in South Africa. On Christmas Day, Jane, Lady Churchill, the Queen's oldest and most trusted friend, was found dead in her bed while staying with the Queen at Osborne House. As Queen Victoria ended the 19th century, she was not her usual self. She was visibly fading. Her voracious appetite had disappeared, and she had lost almost half her body weight. She was confined to a wheelchair, almost blind, and had lapses of memory and moments of confusion. Her children were in denial, her government was unprepared, and the public knew nothing at all. Victoria's own view of the future was bleak. Another year begun, I am feeling so weak and unwell that I enter upon it sadly. The Queen's terminal decline had been rapid and had taken the family by surprise. Her children squabbled, her doctors quarreled, and the public were misled and kept in the dark. Sir James Reed, the Queen's personal physician for more than 20 years, had known the end was nigh, but had great difficulty convincing the royal family of the inevitable, even in the final days when they saw the Queen was drifting between delirium and lucidity. Princess Helena and Princess Beatrice, the Queen's daughters and constant companions, could not accept that their mother could actually die and tried to maintain business as usual. The Prince of Wales was reluctant to cancel his weekend jaunts to the country. The Duke of Connaught, the seventh child of Victoria and Albert, was on his way to Berlin to celebrate 200 years of the Prussian monarchy, while other members of the royal family enjoyed a performance of Little Nell in London's West End. In desperation, Reed secretly telegraphed the Queen's grandson, Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany. On receipt of the telegram, the Kaiser immediately cancelled the celebrations and left Berlin with the Duke of Connaught and set sail for England, throwing the squabbling family into turmoil and forcing them to make public news of the Queen's illness. This unexpected announcement took the nation completely by surprise, and rumors began to abound. Queen unconscious, sinking fast, read one headline. Queen rallying, has eaten and slept. Official, read another. When the end came, Osborne House was surrounded by police to prevent the news leaking out before the new King Edward VII had concluded the formalities. A short while later, the small notice of announcement was pinned on the bulletin board where a large crowd of journalists were waiting. A crowd of carriages set off at gallop, bicycles careered down the hill, and men ran along bawling at the top of their voices, "Queen dead." All of this could be seen and heard as the press rushed down to the harbor to break the news to the world. The London Evening News had a black-bordered special edition out on the street within the hour. Theater performances were interrupted as audiences poured out into the streets. The great tom bell of St. Paul's tolled across the city of London. Across the nation, people gathered in small groups to sing God Save the Queen, and by 8 o'clock shop windows were dressed in black mourning. Whiteley's department store in London had queues 10 deep as customers lined up to purchase their black mourning outfits. Meanwhile, panic broke out in the royal household as they realized that all precedents were 64 years out of date, and nobody knew what to do. Panic also gripped the government when the Queen's personal instructions for her funeral were revealed. Previous royal funerals had been private candlelit affairs taking place at night, but this Queen had requested a full military state funeral. No embalming, no lying in state, no mourning black. She wanted a white funeral, purple and white, with white ponies and a gun carriage, and the first burial of a monarch outside the confines of Westminster Abbey and St. George's Chapel, since George I, the Earl Marshal, the royal officer in charge of organizing royal ceremonies and processions, and Lord Chamberlain, in charge of the royal household, were at loggerheads as to who should take charge, while the new king's household refused to take over responsibility until the queen was buried, yet the old queen's household no longer had any authority. The Accession Council was hastily convened, where the Lord Mayor had to be forcibly ejected, and to the consternation of those present, the king extemporized his accession speech. The casting of a death mask was ordered by the Kaiser, causing uproar among the royal family, as it was known the queen had disliked the use of such masks. The Duke of York was suddenly struck down with a dangerous illness, and the royal undertaker arrived from London but forgot to bring the coffin. The Lord Chamberlain refused to cooperate with the Earl Marshal, and the Kaiser turned on the Bishop of Winchester, who had been the Queen's favorite cleric, saying that if he were his cleric, he would have him hauled out into the courtyard by the neck and shot. Sir Frederick Ponsonby, the Queen's assistant private secretary, traveled to London to discover the Earl Marshal's office in total chaos with nothing arranged. In desperation, he called on Lord Roberts, the newly appointed commander-in-chief of the British Army, who gave Ponsonby carte blanche to organize the military as he saw fit. There were only a few days left to organize the ceremonial. The royal coffin was built by a local carpenter and delivered to Osborne House. The Dr. Reed, with the help of Mrs. Tuck, the Queen's devoted dresser, prepared the Queen for her coffin. The Queen had refused to be embalmed, so they scattered charcoal on the floor of the coffin to combat the smell and absorb the moisture. They cut off her hair, dressed her in a white silk dressing gown with garter ribbon and star, and placed her wedding veil over her face. They summoned the royal dukes, the Kaiser, and the new king to lift her body into the coffin. The family then retired, leaving Reed and Mrs. Tuck to carry out the Queen's secret instructions, never to be revealed to her children. The wedding ring of the mother of her personal servant, John Brown, was placed on her finger. A photograph of Brown and a lock of his hair were laid beside her, along with Brown's pocket handkerchief, all carefully hidden from view. The Queen was now ready for her final journey.